The opinions and views expressed in this podcast are of the presenters and the presenters alone and do not represent that of their employers unless explicitly stated. Do we really need to continually do this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Hi, this is Dina Lang, professional radio personality, and you're listening to a bunch of amateurs on Reunited We Drink.
We are back after an over 900-day break, back to the restart, the reboot, the reanimation, the reuniting, if you will, of United We Drink. Right here.
I'm rested.
Already?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, 900 days. I've been able to rest up for a decent amount of time.
Oh, You weren't in there for very long. We're right here on UnitedWeDrink.com, soon to be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all of those fine podcast services. My name is Mike Urevich, and I am one of the founding members of the original run of this show, and the only co-host to appear on every single past episode, so I'll pat myself on the back for that. I'm joined by not one, but two of my former cohorts from this show. First is an OG, the founding co-host along with me, the man that abandoned us all when we really didn't need him most. He is as handsome as he is tall, Phil Palmisano.
Oh, thanks, Mike. I think it's a pleasure to be back. I'm not 100% positive yet, but
You'll regret it by the end of this episode.
If I last 10 episodes, I'll be happy. No, I'm super excited to be back and be able to talk. More so than anything, I know, and we'll talk about this probably a little bit later, but life's really taken the three of us in different directions, and so it's just a lot of fun to sit down and discuss different demographics now in this beer industry and what is still a hobby as much as a profession for all three of us at this point in time. It's a lot of fun.
It really is, and to say we've gone in different directions is quite an understatement. Even when we last did an episode in 2016, Joel and I, we were in the industry, but I think we're in very, very different spots at our point in our lives right now, which brings me to the other person joining us on the show. He is the man that took Phil's place and helped me run this show into the ground. He is a man of Twitter infamy, drawing the ire of celebrities such as Paul Feig and Andy Richter. He is more handsome than he is tall, because he's not very tall, Mr. Joel Codner.
Hello, gentlemen. I certainly cannot fill Phil's shoes because I just don't have his charm or his foot size.
So
you did a good job.
We're going to talk about today for this episode pretty much where we are, what has been going on with our lives since we last left any of you, or for those of you who are new listeners, didn't listen to the original run, you can understand who we are and where we come from in this crazy, ever-changing industry of craft beer. What are we drinking, fellas?
I am drinking a Evil Twin Brewing Westbrook Brewing collaboration called Imperial Mexican Biscotti Cake Break. This is also the first time that I have attempted to take down a 22-ounce bottle of anything to myself in quite some time.
Do you have any insulin chasers?
Not yet. So
is Wilfred Brimley present to watch over you?
He's not, but I took notes from his commercials before the show. I have to say it's drinking very, very fine for a 10.5% Imperial Stout.
Is it aged? Or is it
It
new?
is. Well, it's sat in my refrigerator for quite some time, so it was what I had cold.
Joel, what do you got?
I'm very happy.
I am sipping on some vintage Whirlpool refrigerator ice water and some really low budget K cups from I don't even know who I ordered this garbage from, but apparently like 5 minutes before we started recording, I realized I didn't really have any beer in the house, so I'm already unprepared.
Fun. I'm drinking coffee
not
and beer.
Broward County with that water, Joel.
No, not Broward.
Did they get their
Or
water
Flint.
back? Is it back
I
on?
believe it
They
is
did.
turned back on.
Yeah, they did, same day.
Oh, okay. That's not bad considering. I have coffee as well, and I'm drinking a Love City Deep Cut Pilsner. So uppers and downers for me.
Always the best.
So Phil, you left this show.
Abandoned.
Abandoned. I'm sorry. Correct.
It's a good
term.
word.
In what was it, like 2014 or so?
2013, 2014, somewhere around there. Easy.
Probably. We'll go with that.
Maybe before 2012.
Maybe? I don't know.
Joel, when did you start? How about that one? Do you remember?
I have no idea.
This sort of data we could have compiled ahead of time, but, you know.
We've erased the memory banks completely.
I honestly have, I think, 10 episodes on my hard drive of old episodes. So, like, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of it didn't exist.
Awesome. That probably saves all of us a professional job.
So, Phil, why don't you tell us where you're at in your career and what you've been doing? I think when you left the show, you were working with Cigar City.
Yeah, so I was still blogging at the time, off and on at dosbeerigos.com, which whoever owns that domain still consistently tries to sell it back to me every year. So people out there, hold on to your domains if you do anything.
One of these days, I'm going to get you to buy it from me.
So I was a street rep. I'm coming up on almost 10 years in this industry, which is crazy to think. All supplier based. Started doing street sales, like you said, Mike, back in like 2011, and took that all the way through till about 2014, 2015, somewhere around there, where I did a blend of sales, marketing, and brewery ops for about 2 years. And then I went back into 100% the sales side of the industry, where I'm sort of landed right now for the past 2 years as a regional sales director for a brewery. So a lot of fun. My passion in this industry is on the sales side. I'm a numbers geek. Sadly, I have not brewed a batch of beer in quite some time, but I get to lean on you guys because you guys have a little bit more knowledge on that side. Joel definitely does, more so than me. And
Joel's an award-winning brewer.
He is, and and yeah, so the sales side is definitely where my passion is. Also in that same time frame, I sat on the Florida Brewers Guild board for about 2 years as a secretary, and I obtained my certified Cicerone certification back in 2014. So I'm not as dumb as I sound, or sounded back then, I should say.
That's still up for debate. No, I mean, you have had a crazy journey from just like us remaining friends throughout all this time and seeing where you've gone. Like, thought that you were pivoting over to a certain different direction with the ops stuff and the marketing, and then boom, all of a sudden you're back in sales. But
yeah,
like you said, it's the thing that you seem to care about the most.
The marketing and the ops side of the industry is a lot of fun, and honestly, it was eye-opening. And I know you did a lot of that, which I'm sure you'll talk about. But the influencing on a brand and actually building a brand was a lot of fun. It was challenging for sure, and specifically doing it for a fledgling brewery. It was amazing. It was a great experience, and it kept me on my toes for sure. and going back over to the sales side, I think more of the managerial aspect of sales is really what drove me back over to that side. I love working with people. I love working with people in this industry, and I have a great team. My team's amazing.
And there's certainly aspects of your job that we're going to talk about in coming episodes, such as sales and how difficult it has gotten out there for a brewery rep, a supplier, even from a distributor standpoint, crowded tap handles, crowded shelves. We'll be talking probably some stuff about ops, which I certainly have some experience in. I guess I'll talk a little bit about myself. When we last left this, I was an operations manager for a brewery. I was dealing with distributors every single day. Part of it fun, part of it not fun. Helping Joel try to keep a brewery on track of production, because we were working pretty much side by side at that point. And then I took a break from the industry. I quit my job. I sold my house. I traveled around. I did some writing. I cooked some food, to make money. I bartended at Joel's place that he's going to talk to us about in a little bit. And then I moved to Philadelphia, where I am now. And I am doing brewing and cellar work for a small nano brewery out in the suburbs called Moss Mill Brewing, and really enjoying myself out there. Make one barrel batches at a time, and we have a pretty nice following out there on our little spot that keeps me on my toes and trying to keep up with production on a tap room that is continually depleting our beer. But it's a fun problem, especially when people are drinking your beer and enjoying your beer. It's funny how I went from being on the ops side to being in the brewery every single day doing production and brewing beer, transferring beer, packaging beer, cellaring it, doing every other thing related to it. I still do some design work on the side. I've done some freelance stuff for Joel. I've done some freelance stuff for some other people. Still doing some writing here and there over on my blog, MikeLovesBeer.com. But yeah, it's been a fun ride thus far, and a lot more stuff to come. Joel, how about you?
Well, as far as I go, when the show last ended in 2016, I was running the brew house at a 15-barrel production facility with you. And, I guess that year was the brewery had sent me to UC Davis. Just to preface this, I hate tooting my own horn because I have no self-esteem whatsoever, but I just feel like we should be listing off, some of the stuff we've done. So I was at UC Davis for a quick intensive course, and I was learning on the job brewing. Just basically jumped right into it. Started keg washing and then worked my way up to brewer, and went to UC Davis in January of 2016 to start filling in some of the science and some of the other things that were hard to learn. There's very little free time in brewing, so especially in a place like that. So it was good to get away and really go to school for a short bit. And a couple months later, I was fortunate enough to receive the John G. Doble III Memorial Scholarship from the Florida Brewers Guild, which sent me to the Siebel Institute that year for another kind of 2-week intensive brewing course where I learned a lot. Got to learn water chemistry from Randy Mosher, and it was just nuts. Sorry, Ray Daniels, not Randy Mosher. And soon after, got promoted to head brewer. And soon after that, in August of 2017, I left there to take a brew pub position at West Palm Brewery and Wine Vault in downtown West Palm Beach. We are a 10-barrel brew pub with a full restaurant and a lot of good premium wine. and I get to have a lot more creative control. I get to have fun and sort of make my own schedule, make my own recipes, do my own thing, and it's been great ever since. We've been fortunate enough to win a few awards, including Best Beer in Florida this year, which I'll never understand, but it's been
Maybe
crazy.
Phil can make you understand. He's a numbers guy, remember? Like, there's probably math involved there somewhere.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And yeah, that's what's going on with me.
So it's really crazy. I feel like to look back at what we were doing back a few years ago and just see how we have changed, and this industry has changed even more and extremely rapidly. I feel like, I mean, the definition of craft beer is being debated hotly. It seems like all the time now. It's been changed all over again. I don't know if twice it has happened since our last episode, but I know definitely once, which was like in the last 6 to 8 months. We've seen a change in definition of craft brewer as to what the Brewers Association says. And there's a whole lot of things just going on in this industry, and I feel like we have such different perspectives on them now than we did before. And that's why we decided to do this again. We've kind of joked about it here and there, texted each other about, hey, we should do this again. And probably about a month and a half ago, we kind of got serious about, hey, let's do this. Like, Phil, I think you pretty much texted me. It was like, hey, let's really do this.
Yeah, since the last time I was on this show, I'm married. I have a child now. That's super exciting, and my wife is in radio, so she was asking, hey, what do you think about putting in a home studio? And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, all right, no problem. So as I'm setting up her equipment, I sort of got that like itch of sitting behind the microphone again. And honestly, it's a great output for all of us to sit down and discuss where we feel that this industry that we all started in as a hobby, and something that I think we all became friends because of beer, and have established our friendships beyond beer, and for us to get together and talk about certain things that are going on in the industry, and then and also inside industry topics of mental health and proper consumption and how to handle your weight, and learning about these overflowing tap handles, and the way that the trends that the industry is going right now is so important. And I know, Mike, you don't like to say that we have 30 years roughly of industry experience on this show, but we're pretty close to it. I mean, we've all been in beer for about 10 years. Why not? We have 3 hosts. We're all right around 10 years, so like we're close to 30 years. I mean, I don't know about that. So,
but I mean, there are so many topics, like you said, that are things that I don't know if many people were, but I know for a fact probably none of us were thinking about 4 or 5 years ago, such as like the mental health aspect, trying to maintain a healthy family and home life while also going out and working events, working long hours in a brewery, overconsumption, discrimination against people in the industry, whether directly or indirectly. I mean, these are things that really weren't talked about when we were first doing this, or if they were in smaller circles, and now a lot of these things are coming up to the surface, and that's a good thing. These are things that should be talked about, and I'm looking forward to us discussing these further on future episodes, and hopefully these are things that people want to hear our opinions on and want to also talk with us about.
Yeah, I think Sorry, Joel. I think the interaction piece of this is as important as anything else, where the listener, can come in and actually ask us questions, and we can discuss things. And as we bring in other guests to discuss certain topics, I think it's super important to a lot of these things were not talked about, period. And as this industry has grown, we have seen these topics now come to the forefront, just like every other industry in the United States.
Yeah, Joel, you wanted to chime in.
And there are topics now that didn't even exist 3 years ago, whether it's certain beer styles or just things that are going on in the industry. So, as we've evolved, the industry has evolved too, and there's so much more for us to talk about now. And I think we're all approaching it from a more professional standpoint. Whereas before we would just sort of sit on your couch and eat Publix fried chicken and, get blasted and shit on everything.
maybe we'll do that as
never
like
happened.
sometime we'll do that as like a Patreon supporter special edition.
I will be traveling that day, unfortunately.
Let's. What are some things that Joel, you are really looking forward talking about on the show?
I mean, obviously,
without getting too involved, obviously, let's just give a little taste. Yeah.
Well, definitely things like mental health, balancing work and life. I get really encouraged when I see other breweries and brewers tackling these issues and a lot of these things that are starting to come to the forefront and get discussed more. That's one of the things that's really important to me. It's something I've struggled with, in the brewing industry. And I'm always interested in what you guys have to say on things because I think you guys are a lot more knowledgeable and, dare I say, even interested in things like, the business side, the distribution, the sales, all the things that, when they come up, I just start zoning out when other people are talking about them. But then, when I get together with friends and, it's easier for me to listen to rather than, reading someone's preachy thread online or some speech at a conference because I really respect what you guys think and what you have to say on a lot of stuff and it's fun.
You have bad opinions about me.
He just selects friends wrong. There's no other way to put that.
Apparently we all do.
I didn't know which way to swipe in the app.
Up the super like.
There we go. I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Phil, what's some things that you want to you're looking forward to us talking about? Obviously the sales related things, but is there anything else?
Actually, I'm really excited to hear you guys talk about the production side. That's something, first and foremost, you would never want me on a brew system, or if you did, you want your company to go out of business. I'm not a talented brewer, and I'm super excited to actually hear you guys discuss it, the two of you in particular, because you're on systems every day, to discuss some more of the details that go into the day-to-day. Outside of that, I'm always excited to talk about marketing and branding and sales and things of that nature. That's my specialty. But on top of that, I honestly, like Joel said, I'm excited to actually hear two other opinions in regards to what's going on, because I can honestly tell you guys, I know for a fact I sit in a different position than you guys do when it comes to our outlook on distribution for the time being, where our industry is going, how we can maintain certain things. You guys both look at things from a very small brewery perspective, and I have a larger brewery perspective that it's refreshing to hear the smaller guys talk, and I think learning from each other is how we evolve as an industry.
I think it's kind of funny, our perspectives on where we represent, because like you said, you do work for a larger craft brewery. Joel is on a brew pub system. I'm on a nano system. Joel and I both came from working for a slightly larger than pub brewery, but not anywhere close to regional by the stretch of the imagination. So we kind of cover a lot of the bases of different types of breweries. But also talking about what is interesting to me is talking about the at-home dynamic, because we are three very different people at this point with what is going on in our personal lives. Joel has been married and has children with an established family for a long period of time. You are newly married with a new child in your life. And I am an engaged person with no children. So it's just like very different dynamics going on here. So our looks at what is going on outside of the breweries and how that can impact our lives at home, I think will be really interesting to get into at a future point.
Yeah, and I also think when you look at our pasts, so Joel has been the symbol of stability amongst all three of us when it comes to relationship statuses and how this industry
scary.
is really
Very scary.
but it's factual. And when you look at where our relationships have gone, and I specifically am looking forward to that episode in particular, because I had a failed marriage partially because of an industry that had me out until 2 a.m. because I wasn't mature enough to truly understand how to maintain myself at that point in time in my life. And I think some of that is it's important to talk about, and I think it's going to be an entertaining episode. And yes, spoiler alert, we have prepared how many episodes?
I think about 10.
So
around 10 or 11 episodes.
Much better than before, where it was like, hey, what are we talking
couldn't even
about
prepare
tonight?
one episode ahead of
Live
time.
mic in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So
we had more preparation in regards to what we were drinking on the original handful of podcasts than what we actually were talking about. I think it was a text message.
that's very true. Yeah.
It was more of a bottle
more
share with a live microphone in front.
What are you going to bring to the recording? So yeah, that's a little bit of, I guess, what you can expect from the show going forward. We're going to try to do this on an every 2 week type of basis and go from there. And if we have the ability to add something in on off weeks, we'll certainly do so. If there's anything that you guys want to, or gals want to hear us talk about, head on over to our website, unitedwedrink.com, head to the contact page and shoot us a message with a topic idea. We are certainly up for anything. Maybe it's something that we already have planned, or maybe you're going to give us a great idea of something to talk about. This type of community and is what I think a lot of us loved about the industry, is working together and talking to other people and like minds, different minds, and learning about one another and where you all stand on craft beer. So some awesome ideas would be great. Or if you just have questions that maybe don't deserve a 20-minute segment to be talked about, a little Q&A segment. Someone came up with a good idea for a name for that the other day. What was it, you, Phil, or Joel?
Between two firms.
You said that for the interview idea.
Shit. Well,
this is something we could have talked about.
Absolutely, and I dropped the first curse word, and I was going to say one thing that you probably realized.
Was that the first curse word?
I think it
No,
was.
I got on that one.
Oh, of course you did. And one thing you probably have realized is that we're cursing a lot less, just simply because we're more mature people now. Except for Joel, because he obviously wanted to curse first. So I forget what it was. I think it was
now
like
I got one too. Now
tip
we're
your
all
bartender. Even. Was it tip your bartender?
No, that was that we were going to do that for plugging our own stuff. But anyway, if you have questions, whether it just be a simple like what color shirt are you wearing while recording? Shoot us over that on the contact form as well. We're also going to do a little bit of talking about the news, and I guess we could talk some news on this episode so we don't cut it extremely short. A couple things that Joel threw out that he wanted to talk about is the Florida Brewers Guild puts on a Florida Brewers Conference every year. That's in August, correct?
It is. I believe it's August 5th.
And it's in Orlando?
It is.
Correct.
And they announced some speakers for the conference. And have you attended the conference before, Joel?
I haven't. My last brewery was about to ask me if I wanted to go to this thing, and that's when I was like, well, I actually have to give you my notice. So I did not end up going that year. I did not go last year because just being in a brew pub, I'm less prone to going to festivals and conferences and educational seminars and things like that. I'm sort of just isolated where I am. I don't get out much, but I did want to go to this year, but I probably won't be able to make it, unfortunately. I really would like to go because there are a couple of these speakers that I really like to meet.
So it's August 5th through the 7th at the Renaissance Orlando at SeaWorld in Orlando, Florida. And one of the speakers that is going to be there that I would really love to hear is the Brewery Diversity Ambassador from the Brewers Association, Dr. J. Nicole Jackson Beckham, who has become such an important figure on social media. I feel like in the past year, she has come into this beer industry world, this crazy world, and has been a breath of fresh air as far as I'm concerned. I love following her and seeing her perspective on things, and would love to hear her, chat with her, have a beer with her, and see what's going on in her mind with this industry.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And looking at this lineup, it's amazing. I was actually sitting on the board for the first year that the Florida Brewers Guild put on this conference, and not only is it an amazing time, I think it brings it back to the roots of the camaraderie of this industry, where you have all Florida brewers sitting in the same room talking about topics that are all relevant to all of us, and putting together panels on some of the stuff that we've discussed already in this episode. But this year, looking at the lineup, honestly, I don't think there's a better lineup that I've ever seen. And dare I say that this could be a really good regional conference, if not a half of the United States, just based off of the names that are in this room. But I agree with you, Mike. Dr. J's doing some great stuff.
Yeah. Joel, what do you think about it?
I think it's great. I've been following along the Florida Brewers Guild on Instagram, looking at their announcements of, who's talking. I see that there's Jenny Mastel-Adams, who will be talking about wellness and well-being in the brewing community. I commented on that post specifically to ask if any of the talks would be recorded and posted online like they do at CBC, and I believe the reply was they're looking into Periscope. So hopefully I'll be able to watch or listen when it's all said and done, because it's a great lineup. I'm sure the self-described, I think it's Twitter villain or something, Andy Crouch, Beer Scribe, that should be pretty interesting. So, they're putting together a really good lineup, like Phil said, and it seems like it's getting better every year. I just wish I could go.
Yeah, I'm looking through this. Actually, one of the things that I like on these seminars is they're doing an AMA with Josh Abishan, the lobbyist and legal counsel for the guild.
Hands
an
down, one
American
of my
music award?
favorite people. One of my favorite people in the Florida beer scene.
He is such a smart guy, but he's also such a fun guy. I've had the honor to get to hang out with him at CBCs and guild events in the past. He is such an important part to the Florida beer industry. I love that he's still involved there, and I would feel like an asshole, but I want to kind of go to that just to ask him dumb questions because it's an AMA. Ask me anything, so I'm going to ask you anything.
Josh is prepared for anything. Honestly, he's
being
an
a
attorney.
lobbyist for Florida brewers in that state. You have to be prepared for anything because damn, does a lot of shit come up.
I got to catch up with Josh a couple months ago when we hosted the Florida Brewers Guild member social at the brewery, and it was so great to see him. I mean, just such a genuine, awesome dude. And you would, upon your first impression, you would not think he's a lawyer. So he's
That's
a great,
true.
yeah. And I didn't even know he was doing that at the conference, so that's great. Now I really want to go.
I also see the closing session, Spooky Stories and Brewhouse Nightmares, a fun retrospect hosted by Tom Barris.
Oh my God.
That
Friend or foe
screams
of the show? I don't know whether he's a friend or foe of the show. Tom Barris, he's been on this show before. He is not a winner of Guest of the Year, despite what he wants to think. And that's I don't know what to think about that particular session, but I'm sure it will be enjoyable. I wonder if he will have darts and bar stools there.
Well, I blame Sean Nordquist on that one personally. So,
anything else you guys want to talk about the Florida Brewers Conference?
I haven't been, so do you know if they do like a full vendor seminar? I mean, obviously not the size of CBC, but are there a lot of like product
You mean like the
manufacturers?
expo hall type of
Yeah.
thing? I don't know. I haven't been there myself.
in years past, there was an expo hall, so you would have vendors come in and you can walk the expo area and check out everything from fermenters to merchandise to hops. In fact, I believe one of the speakers is one of the guys from Florida Hops, the company that's actually brewing.
saw that. Where is that?
So you can
Richard
go through
Smith from Florida Hops.
There you go. And so you can go through and you can sample out products and you can look at different things in the industry, packaging, labels, shirts. There's social hours. It's almost like a mini CBC. It really is. And keep in mind, it's all your peers from Florida. And not to talk too much Florida, because we do have somebody from Pennsylvania sitting in the pod with us nowadays.
Where?
So I don't know. It should be a really good time. I enjoyed it immensely 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I was out of town last year and I wasn't able to make it. If I am able to make it this year, I am planning on sliding through Orlando to sit in some of the talks, because there's some really good discussion.
You should probably figure that out soon. It's like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I feel like Kellogg's and General Mills would be remiss if they did not attend the expo at this point.
Nabisco.
Yes. But my favorite part of any conference or any sort of event like this where we have to travel to, where it's an educational thing, I've always learned the most, not, and this is not a knock on the conferences or the seminars, but I've always learned the most afterward, when all
having
the brewers,
beers with people.
Yes. Just going to some random bar and having weird tiki drinks and, Miller High Life on the rocks with a cherry and a straw. Just talking brew house process and, what do you do in this situation? And, what's your lauder time, and just all these different little technical things that, we get to bounce off each other and learn from each other. And that's always my favorite part. That's what always excites me about going.
I mean, I remember, I can't remember what exact year it was, but when the Craft Brewers Conference was here in Philly, the three of us plus Kevin from Barrel of Monks, after the World Beer Cup ceremony, going and grabbing some beer at a little corner store, going back to Phil and Kevin's hotel room and just hanging out and talking about beer and the business and all of that. I mean, we hung out a lot with Josh Abishan, that particular CBC as well. And it's those types of things, going to those social hours and having beers and just meeting random people there and talking shop. I remember in Portland, Joel and I just hanging out, charging our phones, and then Matty Smooth from New Belgium comes over and like, hey, can I plug in next to you guys? And we talked with him for a little while, and just, it's crazy who you can sometimes just bump into and just have a conversation with that you can learn so much from. And like you said, not to harp on any of the seminars, but when you have some more one-on-one time, you can usually take a little more away from a conversation than a prepared statement to hundreds, even thousands of people.
Yeah, for sure. One of my fondest memories from all of the different conferences that I've been to was actually running into Bart Watson after one of his talks, and
Bart's from the Brewers Association.
And he releases numbers on usually a quarterly or a mid-year on average, which he actually just released some mid-year numbers. But being able to actually have a beer with him and discuss where this industry is going and where he had his sights set in the next year to 2 years. And it's funny because the mid-year report, I'm not sure if you guys checked it out yet or not, but IPAs are still up. The small guy is basically still winning. And when we're looking at it,
and by small guy, you mean the small
local.
Yeah.
Local guys are still driving.
Own premise.
Correct. And when you look at what the consumer wants more variety. And it's funny because I believe as you see the industry continue to develop and change, I believe core is where you go. But because the seasonals and these rotational beers just don't have the same pull that they used to. I mean, the three of us used to fight over bottles of Life and Limb Volume 1 at Total Wine back in whenever it was originally released, and there was only one beer. Case that showed it. Great beer. Now it's in cans, which is even better.
It is?
This past... I saw it last week in Georgia, and they released it in 12-ounce cans this year, which is pretty amazing. So
I'll have to look for that.
But yeah, so those are the three trends right now. So
yeah, and I'm sure we'll certainly get into that, because even in that little blurb you just said there's things that you said that I disagree with, and it'll be fun to get into that a little more on a future episode.
Was there any data on slushy machines?
No, slushy machines were not brought up in Bart's current report.
Maybe next year.
Or at least not that was released to the public.
Does
through the
IRI
Brewers
collect
Association
data on that?
I don't believe there's scan data on that. I hate to say it.
I'm waiting for beers in a cone.
You might not have to wait too long.
You could walk into 7-Eleven and just get an Omnipolo slushy beer, which actually is, they were one of the first guys that I've ever had a slushy beer from, and it was pretty good. Not going to lie. Quite refreshing in that Florida heat.
You're fired from the show.
Hate me now.
Dude, I'm surprised they haven't got, American laws probably don't allow for it, but I'm surprised in Sweden they don't have like an ice cream truck that they go around neighborhoods serving like slushy beers.
So much wrong with that statement. Just so
what?
bad.
What was wrong with that?
No.
You seem offended by that statement.
I'm mentally picturing this slushy machine truck driving around and serving children and adults alike.
Oh, You ID people.
Obviously.
There's
It's like a Wet
I
Willie's
actually
on
learned
wheels.
this at my current job. There's an app that you can get, and you can just hold up the barcode on the back of your ID, and it scans it, and it tells it reads off whether or not the person is over 21, what their name is. Like, it's fucking ridiculous, like the technology. And I was like, this is just available that someone can buy this app and scan IDs.
And it shows what you look like in 50 years.
It's developed by Russians.
That was totally the hot topic this past week. I don't know. Everybody wanted to see what they look like in 20 years or 40 years.
Yeah, and then we moved on to something else. Like, that's the way the world works. We have a short attention span.
Vomiting rainbow face.
The same Russian should make an app where you scan a can of beer with no date code on it, and it tells you what it's going to taste like soon.
I might take that idea. Phil, you can't see this, but we're on video chat. Phil is just shaking his head in just disapproval. He's like, this is what I came back to.
If we ever go back on Patreon, they should just get a live video feed into the three of us, and they can see
Patreon.
Patreon.
That's how it's pronounced. Come on,
is.
Phil. It's
Sorry.
like French or something. What is there any other news that we want to touch on right now, or we're
Did you guys see the Salt Lake City kid? That was he basically opened up a lemonade stand, but it was a root beer stand, and he was promoting ice cold beer, and then in very small print he put root above it. The cops actually came out to this kid and investigated his coolers. He has the picture that I'm seeing online. It went viral yesterday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coolers. And it basically says, want a cold one, exclamation mark, question mark, ice cold beer. And the kid has, his mom said, the kid has anywhere between 60 and 70 people come out a day just to buy an IBC root beer from him.
I pulled this up. This is kind of funny, and it does say IBC on the cold one on the one sign.
And then when business slows, he'll start selling regular seltzer.
And what was even better was Senator Mitt Romney actually got in on it and tweeted a picture of the kid and said, "Here's a lesson in reading the fine print. The future is bright for this young Utah entrepreneur." Good job, Seth.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. It sucks that he was getting flack from the 5-0 in Utah, but yeah, that's I think that's smart business. I bought the last weekend a lemonade from a little girl selling lemonade in front of her house, and she's donating to charity. I was like, yeah, I'll be a part of this, and had the charities that they listed that they were donating to. I love seeing, it's heartwarming stories like that are awesome to still see. This is like heartwarming and funny because it's creative. I love something like this.
That just goes to show you how strict they are in Utah, because they'll send the cops over to you for selling root beer, but you could pretty much self-distribute your homebrew in Florida.
This is true.
So what's a better ad campaign? Seth's ice cold root beer, with root being very small, or the corn gate or corn syrup gate that Anheuser-Busch and Miller went after?
That is one of the dumbest fucking things. I'm sorry, I cursed there, because
I love it.
That is the Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, whatever, selective conversation points. It's like let's talk about this, even though they use, like, so many breweries use it, including themselves, not in Bud Light, but they use corn syrup in a number of their beers. And by corn syrup, this is dextrose, like corn sugar. Almost any brewery that makes a double IPA probably has used corn syrup or corn dextrose, powdered form, in some way to up your fermentation. It's it's ridiculous that was a point that they wanted to bring up.
And a year or two before that, their ad was just as hypocritical when they trashed pumpkin peach ale and then bought a brewery that makes it.
No, they bought the brewery that makes it, then trashed it. It was they trashed Elysian, who made a pumpkin peach beer after they had already purchased them.
Well, I wasn't talking about Elysian, but I did like the corn syrup gate, whatever you want to call it, situation that happened coming out of the Super Bowl.
They use rice syrup for.
I thought it was
Bud
funny.
Light.
I mean, listen, let those guys go at it. That's it's all in fun, and I'm sure they have been discussed in households plenty of time, and that marketing dollars, marketing dollars were well used.
Funny you bring that up. Out where I live, and actually more out towards where I work. I live in South Philadelphia. I work at a brewery just outside of the far northeast of Philadelphia, and the Northeast is considered like a very blue-collar part of the city. It is a very heavy Coors Light part of town. Like, people love Coors Light out there. And Bud put up so many billboards on 95 in the Northeast part of the city talking about the corn syrup thing. And I was just like, why? The people out here who drink Coors Light, they, one, don't know what corn syrup is or what it has to do with beer, and two, don't care. Like, you are trying to convert people who really don't care about something like that on such a technical aspect. To me, that seems like a waste of fucking money, but whatever.
Well, it gets everyone talking, and that's kind of the point. Whether everyone's arguing about it, I mean,
that's true. Yeah,
it's just like clickbait. These listicles come out, and it could be the same thing every year, or it could be, it's just designed to get clicks and get people talking, and you're doing the work for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so I think we've done enough damage for this first particular episode. What we're going to do now is a thing that we did on the previous incarnation of this show, and that is what we like to call last calls, where each of us are going to have an unspecified amount of time to be able to just speak something that's on their mind, whatever that may be, uninterrupted, and just kind of get that off of our chest to end things up. Joel, why don't you kick us off with your first last call?
This one will probably be nicer than some of the ones in the future, but I sort of just wanted to take this time to thank both of you. It's great to be talking to you both. You two left the corporate world before I did and inspired me and showed me that it could be done. And my life's never been the same since. It's been just infinitely better doing what I do and working with the people I work with. And as Phil was talking about where he's been in the past few years, I started to think fondly of the time, this must have been 2010 Jupiter Craft Brewers Festival, where he was just hounding certain brewery owners that I won't mention, and we're standing off to the side like, what's he doing? Like, like, is he going to leave him alone and drink with us? But it paid off, and I'm really inspired by how you guys have evolved. You guys continue to inspire me, and I'm excited to see what comes next. It's weird. It feels like it's been such a long time since our days at the Funky Buddha Lounge and all these other places. I always tell people stories of how it was such a close-knit community back then because there was really nothing down here. We had a couple of breweries or brew pubs. There wasn't a lot of local distribution. There weren't really any tap rooms. So we were just kind of stuck going to, lounges or gastropubs or whoever, was starting to sell craft beer. And if there were any sort of tap takeover, we'd all be there. If there was any sort of bottle release, we'd all be there. And it blows my mind how much it's changed in less than 10 years. So it's crazy to think about what's next. Like I said before, there are things that we could talk about that didn't even exist 3 years ago, and it's going to be really fun to see what you guys have to say about it. So I just wanted to say thanks again to you guys, and that's what I got.
Oh, very sweet, Joel. Phil, go ahead with your last call.
I was going to try and get sentimental as well, but I mean, Joel really stole that. So I'm going to talk about this sous vide that I'm currently trying to cook steaks in. And honestly, I haven't. This is the third time I've tried to cook a steak in it, and they turn out really good. But I think the main thing that I'm having a problem with right now is I got a really bad food sealer, and my vacuum sealer is more so boiling my steaks than anything else. So I mean, yeah, that's about it. And I'm thanks, Joel, for stealing my sentimental. And now the only other thing that's on my mind is I'm really hoping not to mess my dinner up tonight.
Instant
You're fired
pot.
again.
That said, it's an Instapot or Instant Pot sous vide. So yeah, whatever. Anyways, I'm very much so looking forward to discussing matters with you guys and getting back into it. The first time, actually, 2010 Jupiter Craft Brewers Festival. Man, that was a long time ago, but I found.
Were you wearing a glove?
I was wearing a glove, and the glove is iconic.
I forgot all about that. Oh my god!
You really did?
Yeah.
That was like what he was known for.
Yeah, and I think that was the
Didn't you
first
give
time.
it to Justin?
Yes, it's actually hanging in his office.
Still?
Still. So, with a picture of my sister and I think you guys both know what picture that is. So
He has a picture of that in his office too?
He has a picture of that now as well. It's like a mini shrine. It's amazing. But it's super exciting to get back and talk beer with you guys, and honestly force myself to talk to you guys, because I think the only thing that doesn't make this community as tight as it used to be is the fact that we're all just busy.
That's very true, and that's why the show came to an end at the point that it did, is just being busy. Since the last time we released an episode back in 2016, the amount of breweries in the U.S. has inflated by nearly 2,000 to around 7,500 breweries at this point. In this time, a number of people have lived out a dream to own and operate their own breweries, and that deserves commending. However, during that time, a lot of people have opened breweries that have little to no passion for the industry, no care for product to which they are producing, and absolutely zero knowledge on how to run a tap room, tasting room, gift shop, or even a lemonade stand, let alone a brewery. This sad fact has discouraged me at times and left me wondering, is this even an industry that I want to be a part of, and that being an industry that I once loved so much because of the small, tight-knit, quality-focused community we held. In a landscape that seems to be overrun with haze boys and pastry bros, sorry if I got those nomenclatures wrong, Joel, it is frustrating for the brewers and breweries that paved the way to where we are now, that are looked at as dull and simply playing the hits for the mass market. Do I want to live in an industry that thinks that Sierra Nevada Pale Ale is dull and bland? Not really, and that's where I've had my conflict. But instead of it bringing me down, I've decided to use it as motivation. That motivation drives me to want to make high-quality beer that can be traditional and experimental. That motivation drives me to trying to educate the newer brewers, even the ones that have no integrity, about things that are often overlooked, like safety, labeling regulations, and distribution woes. This is a part of my reason for wanting to do this podcast again, and I look forward to us continuing to grow in our industry that we love so much, with like-minded people that see passion and art in the beer world just a tad bit more over money and trends. And that's my last call for the episode. And before we take things or completely off track or end things, this was what were we going to call this? Tip your bartender. Joel, is there anything that you want to plug? Social media, brewery, things going on?
You can find me at Florida Brewer, Florida being DUH, on all forms of social media except Facebook because I got the F out of there. And catch you next time.
Phil, anything that you want to plug?
I don't think anybody wants to follow me on social media. It's just pictures of my kid and me. But big shout out to my wife, Dina Lang, that did the intro for us. Thank you so much. I love you.
Absolutely. Thank you to Dina for doing that. Unnecessary, but she went and did it for us anyway. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Mike Loves Beer. You can follow the show. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at United We Drink. We're on Instagram at United We Drink Pod because someone got United We Drink on Instagram. Thanks, guy. Probably the same guy that owns your dosebeeregos.com.
More than
domain.
likely. That guy.
And he's probably drinking with no one.
Exactly. No one, no friends.
Multiple
as I said
personalities.
before, we're going to have this show up on all of the major podcasting networks soon. Unfortunately, you can't create the profile on those services until you release one episode. So once this episode comes up, it'll start populating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, all of those services. So then you can subscribe to the show. And if you are enjoying what you are seeing, please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. It helps with the algorithm. I don't think that there's anything else that we need to go into. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Phil, for wanting to get back together and do this. This was fun.
I had fun. Hopefully you had fun.
Joel, did you have fun?
I guess.
Bye, guys.
On that bombshell, I think we'll leave you off there. I'm not saying the thing that you'd think I would say at the end of a beer podcast.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Fuck off.